What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into a live Cleveland Browns report. Matthew Peterson here with you guys today after a tough, embarrassing home loss to the New York Football Giants, 21-15, and we are going to pick up the pieces and move along, and we're going to start trying to really boil down what the issue is with the Browns offense that has just been underwhelming through 3 weeks, and that's being nice. So I'll turn it over to you guys, though. My voice is still recovering from Sunday's watch party. How would you grade Deshaun Watson's performance? A, B, C, D, or F? Let me know in the comment section right now as we get the show underway here. As you guys are getting your grades in, I'll fill everyone in on some of the injury news that came out earlier in case you missed it. Myles Garrett is day-to-day with a foot/leg/just lower body injury. Kevin Stefanski did not want to specify, but it looks like the MRI results were not anything too damaging or anything he would need to be sidelined for an extended period of time for. So Garrett, day-to-day, I expect him to miss a lot of practice and then to show up on Sunday and soldier on through because that's what he does. Wyatt Teller is going to be out for a couple of weeks with a knee injury, an MCL sprain. So don't expect to see him for probably 4 weeks. I would not be surprised if he is placed on short-term IR to open up an extra roster spot and add an additional offensive lineman to the active 53-man. DeJuan Jones is dealing with overweightness right now. I mean, he just looks so slow out there, but I think he is still kind of pushing through a knee injury from last year and going into this season a little bit too. Jedrick Wills, James Hudson, no updates on them. David Njoku, we'll have to wait and see, but that's what we got going so far when it comes to the injury front. But what are your grades so far? It's all over the place. Like, literally, I've got Jamil saying F, and I've got Michael saying B-. Like, those are just so vastly different grades, right? One's passable. One is you failed immediately. That's what an F is. Failure. You failed. One is telling me, not too bad, right? Those are very different degrees of grades. Cameron, no update on Nick Chubb. Unfortunately, that was not brought up in the presser today. Yeah, Josh, Jack Conklin needs to come back as soon as possible. I'm not really sure what happened to DeJuan Jones. If he was just a one-hit wonder last year, if he is just out of shape, or if he is still dealing with the injury from last year, and that's kind of having a lasting effect on him. But we need Jack Conklin back at right tackle or left tackle. One of the tackles, because all of them suck right now. It's bad. Let's see. Habu 94 F, Demetrius C plus B minus. C appears to be the most common grade given to Watson. And I think C is appropriate and fair. There is a lot of blame to go around, and we're going to do a whole video breaking down the blame through week 3 and what we have seen so far. Cool Guy's getting his question in right now. If you have a question, feel free to get it in #Browns or Super Chat. Super Chat, you just skip the line. We guarantee your question, your take, your comment, your idea gets on screen for everyone watching to see. And right on cue, Joshua Miller with our first Super Chat of the day. Oh, Josh, I understand where you're coming from. I don't want Chubb coming back to this offensive line. But the thing with Chubb is he's the eraser. Like, okay, who watched Sunday Night Football last night? You had Falcons-Chiefs, and it was 4th and inches, and the Falcons ran it with Bijan Robinson. He was one-on-one with the linebacker, and Nick Bolton won that rep, and he brought him down for a loss. That's where you miss Nick Chubb, when you get these one-on-one running back, linebacker, and Chubb is able to make him miss. He's able to break that tackle, right? He's able to be two guys as one, or you feel like you're playing 12 on 11 with offense. That's where you miss Nick Chubb. Because even with an average offensive line or below average offensive line, you feel like you've got two guys back there. That's how good and how talented Chubb is. Cardinals rally. WTF, man, can't believe you. I don't know what I did. I'm missing something. Okay. Appreciate the super chat, and any clarification would be very helpful. Okay. Let's get on to a couple other questions I just wanted to throw your guys' way here as we let everyone kind of filter on into our live stream today. 101 people tuned in already, 20 likes. A reminder to go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Where's everyone watching from? I want to kind of keep things a little bit light and, play the hits a little bit here because it's a tough Monday when you lose at home on Sunday to the New York Giants, a winless team. But, okay. I was like, what did I do? I was literally thinking, I don't remember having beef with Cardinals Rally. Kathy's in Sacramento. Shaylin Spinda telling everyone to like the video. Appreciate you, Shaylin. Brett is in Naples, Florida. Ben Broski, great to see you as always, Ben, watching from the land. Let's see. Cam, do you think Nick Chubb's injury will affect his career? Cam, #Browns, and I can answer that question during our mailbag. We have Hawaii in the house. Cassie is in Cleveland. Let's see. Nathan's in Boise. Mike's in Cleveland. Josh, home office in Michigan, as always. Habu is in Japan. I've got Travis in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. Alex is in Kent. I had a coworker from Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, when I had a summer job in Maryland. He would drive in every day. It was very impressive. Fun guy to work with. Cardinals Rally is in St. Louis. James is in Memphis. So keep getting your cities in the chat right now. Shout out your city for me. Ooh, look at that. Producer Reed working on the fly. Jacob, Northwest Ohio. Okay. So what I do want to accomplish on today's episode and today's live show is trying to walk away with a better understanding of the blame game for the Browns offense, because when you're not playing this well for the investment that's been made into it, there should be blame divvied out. 3 weeks in, we kind of have an idea as to who's who. The data points are getting bigger. You're collecting a bigger sample size. After week 1, you could overreact, but it's just one game. 3 games, we're starting to figure out what the Cleveland Browns are. And right now, they are not very good offensively. So I am prepared to start assigning blame. Kirk Davis with a $5 super chat. So we looked like we ain't have a pick of practice or communication. We looked like we didn't have a pick of practice or communication. I feel like there is a decent amount of blame, and this is just somewhat low-hanging fruit, but offensive line coach Andy Dickerson has a unit out there that just doesn't really seem to be on the same page when it comes to assignments and responsibilities. With all the blitzes that came over from the Giants, they looked overwhelmed and fish out of water-esque. And that, I feel like, kind of boils down to the offensive line coach, right? After the first series, the Giants throw a bunch of blitzes at you. You end up punting. You go to the bench. You get the tablets. And you should create an action plan, right? The Giants showed you something they had not shown on film much of the first 2 weeks. So, okay, we got flanked. We got blindsided. They won that series. Let's readjust. Let's recalibrate. And let's create a new plan. That never happened. Okay, the second time, we got blitzed again. Didn't see it coming. Let's refocus and let's make a new game plan. That didn't happen. Time again, it didn't look like the Browns had a plan for the Giants blitzing. Kirk, appreciate your super chat. Don't worry about the keyboard. I've kind of got I don't want to say bachelor's degree because that's giving me too much credit, but I've learned to read through typos in super chats because autocorrect and whatnot can ruin that for people. If you have any question you want to share, though, #Browns or super chat like Kirk just did and Josh and Cardinals Rally. I think we missed Cardinals Rally's second super chat. Oh, we did? Okay. So if you have any questions at all, #Browns, like I said, or super chat, and we'll throw it on during our mailbag, which will be in about 30 or so minutes. But I do want to begin the show by just unpacking Deshaun Watson's film, the offense in general, and where we should be assigning blame. That's really what I want to accomplish. Quick reminder, though, injury news. Myles Garrett, day-to-day with a leg injury. Stefanski would not really specify what he even got an MRI on, My guess is somewhere in the foot area because that's what he was dealing with last week, but who knows? Maybe it was a knee injury and the Browns didn't want to add one more body element of Garrett's, ailments that the other team can kind of fixate on. So Garrett day to day, Wyatt Teller week to week, likely going to be on IR if I had to guess, and miss 4 games with an MCL sprain. So that's what we got coming up on today's show. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button, though, so you don't miss a single thing. Help grow the channel. Nathan, I feel like your comment is something that a lot of people are – I should say a lot of people. I think your comment is something that a good-sized group of people are feeling right now, and I'll broadcast it. Hard to blame Watson too much for last game, and I love to blame Watson. Like, that's kind of a bumper sticker, I think, for some fans. But the issue is this fan base, when it comes to evaluating Watson, is all over the place. Right? I've got people defending Watson to the end of the earth, and I've got people that every single thing that goes wrong goes back to Deshaun Watson. Okay. Are we ready to jump into our first segment? Yeah, let's get right into it. We got a lot to get to today. So, 34 likes. Let's get to 40 likes before we get this plane off the ground. If you have not hit that thumbs up button yet, please go ahead and do so. We are 6 likes away. I just hope I cover everything. There's just so much I feel like we have to, get to and not leave a single stone unturned. But we're going to do our best to make sure we address every single issue with this offense. All right, we're at 40 likes. I'm ready to start the show if you are. All right, last sip of water. Okay, let's get into it. We need to talk about Deshaun Watson and this offense and where blame should be assigned. We're 3 games into the season now, so at this point we are approaching the area of it's fair to start divvying out blame, right? After one bad game of week 1, that's a little premature. It's just not a big enough, sample size and data point set to go, hey, this is the issue. 3 games in, we have an idea as to what the problem is. And there are a lot of problems. And what I want to accomplish on today's episode is have everyone to leave the video with a better understanding as to where blame should be assigned, the order of the blame, and where different fans are in terms of their frustration with this team after the 1-2 start. So I've kind of broken what I've kind of gathered up as 90% of the fans, I'm sure there's outliers and whatnot, but a vast majority of Browns fans fall into 4 different camps from what I've noticed. Camp A, let's start there, mostly blaming Deshaun Watson. Not saying this is the majority, but this is definitely one chunk of the pie, and a very big chunk of the pie, too, of fans that feel like Watson deserves a bulk of the blame. Not all the blame, which is later on, but a lot of the blame. And I'm not trying to pick on any one person individual here. I'm just going to use Nick as an example as someone who has a large online presence and I think closely identifies to this camp of after all the turmoil the Browns fan base went through with trading for Watson and kind of being the laughing stock, this fan base still bought in and believed in the direction this team was headed, and they tuned out a lot of the noise of other people online making fun of Watson and the Browns fans and all the, massage jokes and whatnot. And here we are in year 3, and there is no good product on the field to be proud of. So I understand that, right? And Nick, we'll just kind of cycle through these, Reed. I can see where that frustration builds up. I also feel like this group of the fan base understands that Watson is not entirely to blame. So when Deshaun Watson makes a good play, they're not quick to try and bury it or cover it up or just move on from it altogether, right? They are here to enjoy the team, to celebrate the team, but ultimately they feel that, Watson probably deserves majority of the blame that we have seen so far. And through 3 games, Watson has been, I don't think as bad. when it comes to a numbers perspective. Again, if you're just box score hunting, like coming out of week 3, a guy that threw for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, we have seen a lot worse stat lines from quarterbacks. I feel like this camp of frustration directed towards Watson and the Browns is more of just frustration, like I said. Frustration of patiently waiting for this great offense that the Browns moved on from Baker Mayfield from. And a lot of fans liked Baker and didn't agree with that move. But they kind of bought in on, okay, this team's going to be better. This offense is going to be better. And it hasn't been better, right? It was better with Joe Flacco, just from a pure number standpoint. So I feel like ultimately this is just more of a frustration that where are all the goods that we were promised, right? All the money that was given up towards Deshaun Watson, the contract, and all the draft picks. Well, you're not getting elite quarterback play that makes up for the lack of draft capital you've had over the last couple of years, which was the trade-off, of course, right? Deshaun Watson is worth all those draft picks because he is that great of a quarterback. He can elevate a team around him. We haven't really seen the elevation, and that's a fair gripe to have. And I understand where a lot of Camp A is coming from. I ultimately think it mostly just boils down to frustration, and Watson is an easy target to put a lot of the blame on because he has that huge contract, which, maybe takes away spending from other position groups that could help improve the general roster. And all those draft picks given up, that's going to impact the roster construction ability by Andrew Berry with no first-round draft picks for a few seasons. So I see where Camp A is coming from, but I feel like that is, I wouldn't say the easy way out, but I don't think that is the most accurate way to describe the Browns' offensive issues. Let's move on to Camp B. Camp B, Deshaun Watson is solely to blame, right? Where every single thing that goes wrong, it all goes back to number 4. Anything that goes right, it's crickets. We all know what this camp is. Again, not just singling out one individual here, but just an overall embodiment of Deshaun Watson is solely to blame. Like Roberto Shenanigans, whoever the heck that is, loves to look at all the negative things Watson does. But when Watson has a great touchdown pass to Amari Cooper, crickets. Nothing, right? This is a camp that I completely reject. I reject the idea that Deshaun Watson is 100% to blame. I reject the idea that if Jameis Winston started for this team the last 3 games, the Browns offense would be 2, 3, 4, 5 times better. No, I do not agree with that whatsoever. I reject this idea altogether. And I believe with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, there have been a lot of great plays that not a lot of other quarterbacks could have made. I mean, just go back to the first play of week 3 here. Look at Deshaun Watson. This ball is mid-flight, and he is currently being stapled to the turf. Jedrick Wills did not win this rep against the Giants edge rusher. And despite that, despite Watson getting hit basically as he begins to release the football, this is a perfect pass to Amari Cooper. It's a touchdown, and there's crickets from anyone who puts all the blame on Deshaun Watson. I feel like this camp is mostly just, we are so fed up. We never wanted the trade to begin with, and now we're going to look at every little bad possible play and pin it on him and never acknowledge a single good play he makes. So I do not like Camp B. I am not in Camp B. Camp B to me is mostly one of 2 people. People that don't watch the Browns, right? That just look at what NFL Twitter accounts that clearly hate Deshaun Watson for his off-the-field antics, or antics is the wrong word, but off-the-field allegations, and decide we're only going to share the bad and we're never going to share the good. Now, before we look at the next 2 camps, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor today, which is ZBiotics. Anyone who may not bounce back after a night of drinking as well as they used to should listen up. Because let's face it, when going out, you've got a choice to make. Either have a great night or a great next day. That is until I found ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. Pre-Alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to drink this probiotic before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. So stay in the loop and go to zbiotics.com/chatsports or scan the QR code on screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use code CHATSPORTS at checkout. Sign up for a subscription so you stay prepared no matter the time or occasion. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you are ever unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use code CHATSPORTS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. Moving on to Camp C. Defend Deshaun Watson no matter what. This is probably the smallest camp at this stage. It's a tough camp to be in. We all know who's in this camp. One name in particular jumps out as someone that definitely does not want to single out Deshaun Watson when there is a bad play or a bad decision. And not trying to pick on chops, but we know that he is someone that tends to try and divvy out blame elsewhere, or more commonly, just generalize the entire offense, right? The offense is bad. Never just signaling out one individual like Deshaun Watson. So this to me is a camp that covers up for Watson by pointing to other issues. And while those issues are real, the offensive line, the penalties, the pressures, those issues are real. We also have to acknowledge when the offensive line does hold up, the pass sometimes does not go where it should go, right? I mean, look here. Watson on 4th down, late in the 4th quarter. This is their second to last series. He is looking right at Jordan Akins, who is going to get the first down. Watson decides to tuck it and run. He doesn't get the first. The Giants get the ball back. They miss a field goal, and the Browns get the ball back. But the Browns could have saved a whole lot of time and timeouts and everything like that if Watson here just makes the correct read. Like, that is a play where you can just point to and go, that's on Deshaun Watson. There's no ifs, ands, nors, buts about it. There are plenty of instances where the offensive line failed Deshaun Watson. Receivers failed Deshaun Watson. The Browns lead the NFL in drops. How about no ground game at all? Basically, virtually no ground game. There are plenty of times where you can go, hey, that's really not on Watson there. He is busting his tail, and he is taking hits out there, and he's not getting a lot of help around him. Which then Camp A interjects with, he's not getting a lot of help around him because we gave up so much to get him. He's supposed to elevate everyone around him, which I get. But just because you gave up $230 million and all those draft picks doesn't make Deshaun Watson Jesus Christ overnight, right? He's not going to start walking on water just because you gave him that contract. So, at the end, there are a lot of moments where blame can be placed on a whole group like the offensive line, and then there are moments like that where blame can go right to Deshaun Watson, where that is a very simplistic play that just has to be made. Camp D. My camp. Hello, campers. Multiple parties are to blame. And then we get into the order of blame. For me, if I had one wish from a genie, if Will Smith was in my room right now, I would say the offensive line is the biggest group or individual to blame. Just take this one sack right here, which, by the way, was one of 8 sacks on Sunday. Dawand Jones gets so horribly beat on this rep. He is basically running behind his man and guiding him into Deshaun Watson, who you can see is just getting to the end of his 3-step drop. Look at the receivers. Like, they are just getting into the routes. None of them are even looking back at the football, not because they should be, but because that's how quickly Dawand Jones gets beat on this rep. And this is not just a one-off either. I didn't just pick, one bad play from the right tackle and say, see, this happens all the time. No, Deshaun Watson has been sacked more than any other quarterback. He's been pressured more than any other quarterback. The offensive line to me here is failing Deshaun Watson one too many times. Now, in their defense, and kind of to put a little bit of blame on Watson and then maybe a sprinkle on Stefanski, when you know your offensive line isn't really playing well and the Giants are blitzing like it is remember the Titans, you have to go into the huddle and up to the line of scrimmage with a hot read, right? With a, hey, if they send 5, if they send 6, the ball is going out to you. And the you is Jerome Ford, who is wide open at the 25-yard line. It might not be a big play, but it's better than a 10-yard loss. Like, that's a moment where you can go, hey, even though the offensive line isn't doing their best, this has to get completed. It just has to get done. So again, this is where I come back to, there's a lot of blood on a lot of people's hands. The offensive line has just been simply giving up way too much pressure. 16 sacks, 45 pressures. Even though there are instances where Watson holds on to the ball for too long or he doesn't find Jerome Ford on his hot read, this is still way too big of a number. It's just, it's insurmountable, I believe. Like, honestly, the Browns might be lucky that they are 1-2 with the amount of pressures and sacks given up so far. They're number 1 in the NFL, by the way, in all these categories, and they're running away with it. Like last year, they ran away with turnovers. This year, they decided, all right, we're going to protect the football. It's going to come at a price. We're going to get our quarterback killed, 16 sacks, 45 pressures, and we're going to also double down with a lot of penalties. So, if we're going through a pecking order of who to blame and how much to blame, for me, I start with the offensive line. Then I go, Watson's not helping the cause, and there are one too many examples of him not making the right decision when it comes to getting the ball out to the right receiver or getting the ball out at all. But then I also factor in pressures from the offensive line, the drops from the receivers. If Cedric Tillman catches that ball, how different of a conversation we could be having today. Like, everyone wants Watson to be the hero. He can't catch his own passes. Amari Cooper, 2 bad drops in the first 2 weeks. Great bounce back in week 3. Tillman, very bad drop on 4th down. Like, I can't fault Watson if his receivers don't catch good passes. And there have been good passes. Okay? And then no run game whatsoever. It's like this team has not learned to live life without Nick Chubb, and it's been a year. If you knew Nick Chubb was not going to be here for the beginning of the season, which to me it seems pretty clear that the Browns had an idea of that being a reality going into training camp, maybe you should have made another move for a running back. Instead, there's this weird rotation of Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman, where I like Foreman, but then we don't really get a lot of Foreman. You factor all that in, and this is somewhat what you get. So, offensive line, Deshaun Watson, drops and slash running back slash ground game being non-existent. And for me, I think if you are looking to solve the issues on the offense, issue number 1 to solve is the amount of pressures given up. If we see Watson go out there in week 5 and week 4, week 5, week 6, and have a good pocket most of the time, doesn't need to be perfect every single snap, but just dramatically reduce the amount of pressures, and he's missing guys, he is not making the correct read, he is throwing to the wrong team, hey, we can revisit that pecking order. But as long as the Browns have given up 45 pressures, what's that, 16 more than second place, there's no quarterback that's going to do well in this system. That's just a fact. I don't want to hear about, what about last year, though? That's last year. Leave it in the past. And the craziest thing, by the way, is the Browns' offensive line at the end of the game was probably the best offensive line play, despite no one really playing in their natural position, we have seen all year. So hopefully that's going to be a wake-up call and maybe kind of a sense of urgency and a hair-on-fire moment, and we can finally get some consistent offensive line play. But I'll turn it over to you to wrap up the video. Who do you blame the most for the 1-2 start? I feel like, I don't want to be a broken record, if the offensive line was just average, we would be having a very different conversation right now. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's episode. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed it. I do appreciate everyone who sticks around all the way to the end of the video. So shout out to you guys for watching still, and I'll see you all later. How are we doing? Kathy says offensive line. Teach Tech Production says offensive line. Ben Broski says offensive line. I'll put it this way, too. I maybe should have mentioned this in the video. If there was just a middle-of-the-road quarterback for the Browns, meaning not one who's controversial or anything like that, but just your plain Jane quarterback, would the conversation be the quarterback's bad or the offensive line is bad? My guess is it would be the offensive line is bad. But because so many people just don't like Watson, they are going to look for ways to pin him as the boogeyman. And when there are times where he is to blame, and those examples were highlighted, they then take those examples and hit apply to all for every single thing that goes wrong. And the reality is, that's just not the correct way to take in football. Before we went live, I listened to this clip of Kurt Warner. He was on like Chicago Sports Talk Radio. And they asked Kurt Warner, what would you tell fans and novices like us when it comes to what to watch for when taking a football game in for a better evaluation of what we're seeing? And Kurt Warner said, you can't evaluate a team by watching the game on TV. You don't know, for starters, the whole picture. You can't see what's going downfield most of the time. You know what I mean? You're not getting the all-22. You don't know what the play call was. You don't know what the concept was. There's a lot you don't know when you just watch it one time without replay on TV. If you want to be entertained, TV is for that. But if you want to actually evaluate and learn from what the game is, you can't do it by just sitting on your couch watching TV and catching each play once, maybe a replay for a touchdown here and there. And to me, that's unfortunately the trap a lot of people that are really loud about the Browns' issues are falling into. They come in with a preset mindset of they don't like Deshaun Watson, they don't like the Browns, and they're going to look for bad examples of the Browns and of Watson and blow it up and magnify it. And sometimes, a lot of time, I don't know, there are correct issues to be pointed out with Watson. But there's a lot of snaps in the football game that go completely undetected because it doesn't fit the narrative. I don't do all this to be like a big Deshaun Watson defender. I am simply trying to diagnose the issues with the Browns. And if we want to get a better football team and a better product on the field, I think it starts with the offensive line. And that might not be what you expect to hear or what other people are saying. But after in every single game, rewatching it the next day, I come with more and more of an impression of there are examples of when Watson makes the wrong decision, but I feel like those examples are vastly outweighed by when receivers are dropping the ball and offensive line is giving up pressure way too quickly. That's my TED Talk. We got a mailbag coming up next. We had a super chat potentially come in. Okay, let's hit that super chat. See, I did all that, and I still get Kirkpatrick saying the QB sucks, plain and simple. It's like, well, did you not watch anything? The whole point of it was so that you wouldn't just come away with, nah, Watson's bad. Was he bad when he threw all those touchdown passes on Sunday? Was he bad when Cedric Tillman dropped the ball? Or was he bad when DeJuan Jones ushered in the Giants' defensive line to him? He was bad when he didn't throw it to Jordan Akins or dump it off to Jerome Ford. Well, that's 2 plays. I just listed way more than 2 plays where I don't know what you wanted Watson to do. Kirk Davis, what's going on, man? Deshaun Watson had an okay day, but the blame is offensive line and some bad play calls. Yeah, I feel like that's a fair thing to say here. Deshaun Watson does not get completely absolved from all wrongdoing. I think if you were to replace Deshaun Watson with Jameis Winston, you would still run into the same issues, and then you would look around and go, oh, so who do we blame now? Maybe Watson wasn't the problem, or Watson wasn't the biggest problem like we thought. He's a part of the problem, but I don't think replacing Deshaun Watson's fixing the problem here. I think you are approaching it the wrong way. Now, we have a mailbag coming up next, so get your questions in. Hashtag Browns or Super Chat like Ray has done. Like Kirk has done, and Joshua Miller has done so far, and Cardinals Rally. So if you want to get on screen, Super Chats, greatly appreciated. They do help support the channel a ton, and we guarantee your question, your comment, your take gets on screen for everyone watching to see. Okay. Okay. So hashtag Browns, though. Are we ready to jump into our mailbag? Okay. 101 people watching, so if you think of a question and you want to skip the line, Super Chat. Otherwise, hashtag Browns in the chat, and producer Reed will pick his favorite questions. Okay, let's get into a live mailbag. What's going on, Browns fans? Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report mailbag time. I'm answering questions from our live show, which airs Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern. So, our first question coming in from the Pickle Rick. Will the Browns explore a Davante Adams trade? I'm filming this on Monday, so maybe some things have changed until between now and when this video goes out. But the context here is, if you guys didn't see, Antonio Pierce, after the Raiders lost to the Panthers in Week 3, said there are people out there making business decisions, and we're going to have to make some business decisions of our own. And a lot of people were trying to speculate who was he basically saying did not give 100% effort, and they might decide to move on from. Davante Adams was a name that came up many times when trying to, sleuth out who is Antonio Pierce talking about here. I feel like Davante Adams is trying very hard for people to believe he doesn't want to get traded, but deep down, if you gave him some truth serum, he would want to get traded. Now, is that going to be to the Browns? Very unlikely. The only reason why I would even consider it as a remote possibility is the Browns did need a receiver. We thought they didn't when they were invested in trying to get Brandon Ayuk. What if they decide, you know what, our solution to the offensive, sluggishness to open up the year is we're going to pour on more talent, right? More cowbell, more talent, and that's going to be our way out of this. And would anyone put it past Andrew Berry to at least make a call? I surely wouldn't. So if you guys want to trade for Davante Adams, let me know in the comment section. I don't think the Browns are ultimately going to bark up this tree enough to be legitimate contenders, but Andrew Berry is a trade addict, and I wouldn't be shocked if Adams were to be available. He at least inquires and decides this is going to be our way out of a slow start offensively. Although, if you want to get out of that, I think it's got to start at the offensive line, not the receiver room. Joshua Miller. Are we now one of the 5 worst offensive lines in the league? Bad offensive line play that comes to my head initially. The Browns through the first 3 weeks. The Bears. I'm trying to just go around the league a little bit quickly. But I would say through weeks 1 through 3, the Browns have been bottom 5. I'd be hard-pressed to find 5 worse teams just knowing how bad the Browns' offensive line has been. All I can hope for is they just start to get healthy. And that doesn't seem to be happening because look how they ended last week. Joel Petonio at left tackle. Ethan Posick going from center to guard. Nick Harris filling in at center. Zach Zinter filling in for Wyatt Teller at right guard. DeJuan Jones, who we thought would be like I wouldn't say saving grace, but the guy that holds down the fort until Conklin and/or Wills returns, has quietly not even quietly, he's just completely regressed from last year. He's a turnstile. So yeah, Josh, I'd say so. I would say the Browns have a bottom 5 offensive line right now, which is just mind-blowing to me. Ben Broski, why is the media trying to bring Bryce Young to Cleveland? I think there are certain people that believe the Browns are a good fit for Bryce Young because they have determined Deshaun Watson is not a fit or a long-term quarterback for this team, and they just see Bryce Young as an option for Cleveland. That's a team that is always interested in acquiring talented players or making moves, right? If you're thinking about teams likely just to make a trade, the Browns are towards the top of the list. The people that say that, I don't think actually watch the Browns games, and what they really do is they just come away with the impressions they get of the bad clips from Twitter of Deshaun Watson without ever noticing, well, maybe all the drops and the 45 pressures through 3 weeks aren't entirely on Deshaun Watson. Not that he is completely off scot-free, but if you put Bryce Young behind that offensive line, it's going to be 10 times worse. Ben, thank you so much for your question. Hope I was able to answer it to the fullest. Ya boy Ham, any quarterback would have failed behind that line. Every week it's something else. What can we even do? This is something where I don't think it's a personnel, maybe it's a personnel change, but I think it's mostly just internally. The Browns have to have a great week of practice and kind of get their shit together. Pardon my French, but that to me is the solution here. The offensive line just has to come in fired up and pissed off about the way they played so far and just start to really turn it around. We see it in sports. We see it every year in the NFL. Teams get off to a great start, teams get off to a bad start, and they just kind of flip a switch and turn it around. This is one of those reminders where, not to poo-poo on the nerds and the analytics people, but football is played on a gridiron, not on a spreadsheet. And these are athletes. And athletes have good days and bad days. Right now, they're having a lot of bad days in Cleveland. Doesn't mean they can't start to turn it around, though. Coaching, game plan, practice, install, all of it just needs to get better. And they're a professional group that is capable of doing that. We just got to wait and see it. Cameron, do you think Deshaun is going to play better this weekend? I think Watson has played better as the weeks have gone on this season. As crazy as that might sound, just look at the numbers from week 1 to week 3. If you just want to go off the box score, which I don't recommend doing, but if you want to take the most simplistic approach to it, guys and girls, what is the best week we're seeing here? I would say week 3. 196 yards, most of all 3. 2 touchdowns, most of all 3. So Watson has been, I think, improving week after week. And hopefully with the Raiders coming off a really embarrassing home loss to the Panthers where Andy Dalton completely torched them, the Browns can look at it as blood in the water and really capitalize on it. So, yeah, Cam, I think Watson will play better in week 4 against the Raiders. Jacob Kistner, does Andrew Berry make a big splash at or before the trade deadline, couple small moves, or stay pat? If you remember, the Browns last year had their bye going into, what was it? They played weeks 1, 2. They played the week 1 against it's escaping me. But they won week 1 last year, and then Bengals, and then they had week 2 against the Steelers, and then they had the Titans, and then they had the Ravens. So they had their bye in week 5. And Andrew Berry did one of his, every quarterly press conferences, and during that they said, when asked about trades, because the trade deadline was coming up, they said they had to wait a little bit longer to have a better roster understanding of their team. So my guess is we can't say definitively one way or the other. I'm sure he would like to improve on the offensive line. You don't often see offensive linemen traded. I remember Ezra Cleveland got traded from the Vikings to the Jags, but outside of that, that's not a position group that gets dealt very often. So if there's a team willing to trade a good offensive lineman, that would be a move I could see the Browns making. But as of right now, I would say a couple of small moves. Time Lord, is Jedrick Wills done? No, I don't think Jedrick Wills is done. I think it's his first game back after not playing since November of last year. Like, if he's still healthy, because he did pick up that knee injury in the loss against the Giants, I think there's going to be a longer leash and a little bit more patience and understanding that he's going to work his way back into things. Now, I still don't think Jedrick Wills is a long-term solution at left tackle. I've never really seen it all the way to that extent. I think Jedrick Wills is an average left tackle. I think he is serviceable. I think he's a starter in the NFL. I don't think he's someone that will ever make a Pro Bowl or will ever be a fan favorite, build a statue, that type of guy. That's a high bar to reach, and that's kind of unfair to place on him. But I think Jedrick Wills, after one game, should not be crucified or just deemed done. It's his first game back since November. Let's give it some more time. Last question coming in from Excellent Gamer. Do you think the Browns should trade for a running back like Brian Robinson? Let's wait and see when Nick Chubb's returning, right? I mean, it doesn't really make a ton of sense to give up an asset, a draft pick, for a position like running back if you're planning to get a running back like Nick Chubb back. If they feel like Nick Chubb is nowhere near returning, then okay, we can have that conversation later on. But for now, I don't think the Browns are rushing to give up assets for a position group that they already added to in free agency, Deontay Foreman, and they expect to get a guy like Nick Chubb back sometime this season. So if the window for Brian Robinson is like, if they don't make the trade for another 2 weeks and he comes and Chubb returns in 5 weeks, is a draft pick worth 3 weeks of Brian Robinson? Probably not. I do appreciate the question, though, and we'll have to wait and see if the Commanders are even interested in dealing their running back with their young rookie quarterback. So who you got for Sunday? Browns or Raiders? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't be afraid to shoot your shot. I'm going with the Brownies still. Okay. If we get some more super chats, we'll hang out. I'm just kind of looking over the chat here for anything I missed. But overall, it just feels like a lot of frustration and patience wearing thin. This roster is just so talented. It's really frustrating to see what feels like it going down the drain. The only other sliver of good news I'll give, outside of the Chiefs and the Vikings, like, first off, how many undefeated teams are there? Chiefs, Vikings, Steelers, Seahawks. Am I missing anyone else? I don't think so. The only team of those three that really impressed me are the Chiefs. Like, give credit where credit is due. They're 3-0. You play the team in front of you. But when the team in front of you, like your Pittsburgh, is Kirk Cousins, who was a statue in week 1 and an awful game plan from Atlanta, and you didn't even score a touchdown to win, and then rookie quarterback Bo Nix in week 2, and then a little bit of Justin Herbert on one leg and Taylor Heineke for the other half of the game, I don't feel like the Steelers have shown me that they are capable of winning big-time games, right? Same goes for the Seahawks, who have beaten rookie debut Bo Nix, Jacoby Brissett, and a very underwhelming Patriots roster, and Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins at home. And then there is, who's the last undefeated? Chiefs, Steelers, I went through them. Those Seahawks, but Vikings, sorry. Yeah, Vikings, I feel like they might just be good. I don't know what to make of the Vikings. Like, they're rolling right now with Sam Darnold. He's kind of the leading vote getter for MVP. As crazy as that sounds. So the point I want to make here is every other NFL fan base doesn't really feel very good about where they're going right now. Like, name a team. Cowboys, they beat us. They've lost 2 in a row. Eagles. Does it feel like the Eagles are as good as they were when they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago? Reed? Like, it doesn't feel like they're quite flying at that same altitude that they feel like they should be at. Jalen Hurts is getting outnumbered by Daniel Jones this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I feel like right now there's no distinct team. I mean, even the Chiefs. The Chiefs aren't playing like the Chiefs, but they're still 3-0.
Right.
I was talking to Tyler Jones, the host of the Chiefs Report, and he said it's crazy how the Chiefs are not playing their best football and they're still 3-0. So across the league, nobody is playing well.
No one should feel very good right now.
Yeah,
is my point. So everyone's kind of in the same camp of, man, we kind of suck right now. They suck too. Like Bengals, I thought they were healthy. They lost week 1 to the Patriots. The Ravens started off 0-2.
Losing to the Raiders.
Yeah. The Raiders lost to Andy Dalton and the Panthers. So if you think it's bad right now for the Browns, there's a lot of other teams that feel like they have it way worse. Like the Jags, 0-2. And they probably will lose tonight indeed. Okay. That will do it for us on our live show today. I do appreciate everyone who hangs out with us. And for everyone that super chats, thank you so much for going above and beyond to support the channel. We'll let you guys go. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we'll catch up throughout the week.